another episode of my podcast. My name is Cheryl, and this is Cappuccino Crafts, my little channel on YouTube and my corner of the general interwebs where I like to talk about knitting and crochet and TV and movies and books and other life and chatty things that I want to share with you. So, thank you very, very much for choosing to watch this video and spend a little bit of your time with me. I hope that you enjoy it and settle in, get yourself a delicious beverage, your yarn, your hook, your needles, your embroidery, whatever it is, and let's settle in and enjoy a nice chatty time. Today is Monday, December 21st. It is the Winter Solstice, which is the shortest day of the year. So there's not a lot of daylight right now. It is like 3:30-ish. So, yeah, but after today, every day, the light will last a little bit longer, which is a good thing. Yeah, I'm glad that the days are going to start getting longer now. I'm ready for a little more sunlight. And it's a few days until Christmas. Very, very soon. And I am feeling in a Christmas mood, a Christmas spirit. And that's good too. Yeah, yesterday, the church that I'm a member of had a drive-up or drive-through open house for Christmas, and I have not seen people from my church in so long. We have our services on YouTube. Our church started a YouTube channel at the beginning of all this, and just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, they did start having in the building in-person services after having in the parking lot drive-up services for a few months, which I didn't enjoy the drive-up services, so I just continued watching on video. But I heard that they were going to have a drive-up or drive-through open house, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to do it. Was really happy about that, and so I did. I made some tea and I put it in a travel mug and brought it with me, and I had my mask, and there weren't a ton of people there at one time. People were kind of coming in and going, and yeah, and outside, nope, there was nothing in the building, and so it was a good setup, and I was so happy to see people's faces in person, even with masks, but eye to eye and in person, and was really, really good. And I came home with a little box of cookies, which was so sweet. And yeah, so I got, the other day when I did grocery shopping, I got a poinsettia. So I have a pretty poinsettia, and I have a tree, but I haven't decorated it. We have a small artificial tree that's pre-lit, and it's in the other room. I think I'm going to move it to the room where I spend time in downstairs. So if I move it, I'll decorate it. If I don't move it, it'll just, the poinsettia might be enough. And I've been enjoying candles, lighting scented candles, and so yeah, I had a bit of holiday mood and festive surroundings. Anyway, yeah, so there has been no crafting, not a stitch. So I don't have any knitting or crochet to talk about, but I'm not feeling bad about it. It's just how it is. But reading has been going well. So let's talk about the books. And I forgot when I made the last video last week, I forgot to tell you about a book that I had finished, which was Artificial Condition, the second Murderbot Diaries novella. And if you are not familiar, Murderbot is kind of a cyborg, like organic parts and robotic parts, and like a organic artificial intelligence. And Murderbot calls itself Murderbot because Murderbot has gone rogue by hacking its governing module, which makes sure that it has to follow the orders and is under control by the human organization that owns it. But now Murderbot is rogue, and Murderbot has escaped. And this is a second novella. It expands the world a little bit and expands the story. Murderbot investigates into the earlier massacre, which was the inciting incident that made it hack its governing module. So Murderbot wants to find out more about that and discover what its role really was and what really happened. It's not sure it can trust its own data and memory banks. And there's also a really great new character introduced in this novella, which is Art. The Art is a AI construct that controls and pilots research and transport spaceship. So I loved Murderbot and Art's interactions. They were really good. And the first novella I read by text as an ebook from the library. And this one, I thought I would try the audio version. And it was good. I enjoyed the audio version, but it threw me at first. And it's funny the reaction that people have with the narrator, because Murderbot is completely genderless. It doesn't even have any of those parts because it is not a comfort unit. Only comfort units get that equipment. But so Murderbot has no gender at all. And but in my head, when I was reading my text, Murderbot's voice in my head was a feminine voice. That was just the voice that I gave it in my head. And then when I listened to the audiobook, the narrator is a man. So hearing Murderbot, it took a little adjustment because I wasn't used to thinking of Murderbot's voice as a masculine voice. And I've watching a couple of other booktubers review some of the Murderbot books. It's funny because if you are just reading, it's just up to you in your head what kind of voice you assign. And then depending on whether you start with the audio and hear the masculine narrator, or whether you start with text and then give it whatever kind of a voice you make in your head, it's interesting how that works, like in your reaction to it, like if it's different, if you're going between the text and the audio. Is there any difference between the voice that you gave it in your head? And yeah, so interesting, but it was a good story. The tension and the plot and the mystery behind the investigation, and then the other plot of Murderbot having to interact now very closely with humans without being detected, which is a big challenge. And Murderbot's interactions with art, everything, it was really good. I enjoyed it. So definitely this is a series that I really like, and I look forward to continuing on. And then two other books that I finished are books that I started a long time ago. I think even in 2019, I started this, actually, as I have two Peter S. Beagle books. One, a nostalgic reread, which is The Last Unicorn. I read that a long time ago in college. And the first exposure to the story was the movie adaptation by Rankin Bass in the mid to late 80s. And I love that story. I love the movie. I love the book. And so I love that nostalgic reread, but I also thought it'd be fun to read a new book by Peter S. Beagle and kind of read them together. And so I found a recent book. He hadn't published anything for quite a while, and then in 2016 he published Summerlong. So it was published many years after Last Unicorn was published. And Summerlong has a mythological element, but it is set in modern day, and it is set in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Seattle, and one of the islands. There's several islands in the Puget Sound outside of the bay of Elliott Bay in Seattle. And so the name of the island, I don't know all the names of all the islands, but so the main characters live on one of the islands, and they anyway, it's very close to home, and his description of the Pacific Northwest and Seattle atmosphere specifically, and the ferry rides and the islands, and all of those details, it was just so good. So good. He really captures a setting and an atmosphere, and it felt very authentic Pacific Northwest, very much, and I loved that. It felt like very homey and comforting, and I loved being there in that setting. And then it also has some mythological, magical elements to it, Greek mythology, and it's a very character-focused story. The plot is pretty thin. It really is about like late middle age characters, just really in a routine, kind of stuck and just kind of in a funk, like life has been so much less than what they dreamed it might be, and yeah. And then some things start to happen. There's a mysterious young woman comes to the island, and seems kind of in trouble or lost or in height, trying to hide. There's maybe something coming after her, and so this couple takes her in, and that decision ends up turning their relationship and their lives and everything kind of drastically in a different direction. So it's really about that, and I like his character work. I like his, it's very reflective and emotional, and I enjoyed it. I don't love it. It's not a favorite the way that Last Unicorn is a favorite. I don't think it's up to that level, but I really liked it a lot. And he still has that prose. That prose is just as beautiful and tight as it ever was. I really enjoy his way with words. Yeah. So finished those two before the end of this year, and I'm really glad they're done. And then I am currently still reading Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, which is kind of a gothic horror-ish. It depends whether it would really be horror or not. But very gothic atmosphere for sure. And it's got a dual timeline. There's like a 1902 timeline, and then a 2014 timeline, where in 2014 they're making a movie about tragic events that happened at this New England boarding school for girls. And there's also like a book about books element, because it seems like maybe this was all instigated by a cursed book, or maybe it's the land and the building of the school that's cursed. But it's definitely, the book has there's a book that has a major role, so there's that element. And also in the 2014 timeline, one of the characters is the author of a book about the school and about those events. So she's like consulting and involved in the filming of the movie adapted from her book about that history. So it's very kind of meta in that way. And it's very atmospheric, and yeah, and there's female-female romance relationships going on. That's Plain Bad Heroines. And the other book that I am well on my way, deep in the middle of, is What Is Not Yours Is Not Yours by Helen Oyemi. It is a collection of short stories, and they are like fabulism or magical realism, where it's very much a mix of grounded in the real world, but also like magic and fairy tale and surreal things. It's very dreamlike and surreal. And some of the stories are more rooted in like a modern setting, and some of the stories are more like fairy tale, timeless feeling, but all of them have a bit of a timeless feel, even the ones that have more modern details included. And they are all very like surreal, and she uses symbols, which I have not been analyzing. But yeah, she's that kind of writer, very like, yeah, not straightforward. And the stories, they don't always make sense. It's like dream surreal logic, not like real world logic, and the symbolisms and the connections. Some of the characters appear in more than one story, so that kind of gives a little bit of thread of connection when you encounter a character again. But yeah, I'm enjoying them. You know, some more than others. It's always that way with a short story or an essay collection. You're not necessarily going to love all of them. And yeah. So that's that. And I've also been, I heard about a spreadsheet that you could download and then save your own copy and then edit it. It's on Google Docs. It's on the Book Riot website. I got a link. Somebody mentioned it and provided a link to Book Riot, but it's there on the Book Riot website. And so I downloaded a 2021, and then I thought, you know, I haven't read a huge number of books. I could fill out one for 2020. I think right now my count of finished books is at 31. So I'm like, that could be manageable. So I have been working on and entered all the information for my 2020 reads. And then they take, when you fill out the log part of the spreadsheet, then they also have made graphs that will show you interesting stats and graphics from the information that you entered. So that's been really fun to play with. And I did add one thing that wasn't on the original spreadsheet, because it didn't track series versus standalone. And I thought that might be an interesting detail to know. Because I do read some series and I'm like, how many though? Am I like, how does it compare to the standalones? And so I thought that might be fun. So I added that to the 2021 and the 2020 file. And yeah, so I think I will be making an end of the year reading video where maybe I talk about some of the things that I've learned from looking at the stats and the graphs, because I've been looking at the graphs of StoryGraph, because StoryGraph gives a lot of very interesting graphs and data about your reading stats as you enter your reading in your books there too. So yeah, it's been interesting to look and think about some of those things and notice maybe some trends. So I think there might be a video coming about that. And I hope that you're doing well. If you are celebrating Christmas, I hope that things are coming together for whatever way that you are going to be celebrating. And I hope that you have a good week coming up. Yeah, take care, and I hope that you and all of your family and loved ones are safe and healthy, especially from the virus. And be safe, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.